everyone. My name is Lori Hammond, and I'm your host today for Let's Talk Hypnosis, brought to you by Hypnothoughts Live 2018. And my very special guest today is Didi Vergados. Welcome to the show, Didi.
Hi, Lori. It's my pleasure.
Let me tell you a little bit about Didi. Didi is a certified hypnotist, a master health practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and the author of the soon-to-be-released Brain Hacks for Success and Optimal Performance. Didi is also a sought-after professional speaker and corporate presenter in the field of emotional health and well-being, having appeared on numerous podcasts, television shows, and radio programs. Didi is passionate about weight loss and brings a wealth of information to the subject, as she herself struggled with her weight for the first 30 years of her life. Because of this, she can relate both personally and professionally to her clients. How are you today, Didi?
I am fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Yes. So I just want to ask you, how did you first get into specializing in hypnosis for weight loss?
Well, like everybody else, I started out as a generalist in hypnosis, which I still do. Like I'll do the things I like doing. Like I like building confidence and anxiety, and to a certain extent, the one thing that's really interesting people call for is, breaking up with an ex or public speaking. But I really love doing weight loss, because I happen to know the crazy mindset that goes along with being, I'm going to say, the only thing I can say is being out of control with food, because Lori, didn't you not lose 70 pounds?
Yes, I came to hypnosis for weight stuff myself.
Yeah, and now you're a hypnotist. So the crazy mindset. So I was, from the time I was very, very young, I somehow got the idea in my head that I was fat. Okay, so what I mean is, like, I'm this 10-year-old and I think I'm huge and fat and disgusting. And when I look at pictures later on, I actually wasn't. So the mindset that created that is actually what actually caused me to gain weight, because from the time I was 10 years old, I was always going on a diet. And part of you're a child, you don't know, and it's not like my mother knew what I was doing. My parents were working, so they didn't know that I was starving myself for 5 years. I think it was a good 5 years. It was from grade 7 all the way through high school to after I graduated high school. I would starve myself every day, and I was like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to lose weight. And then by 4 o'clock would come, I'd come home from school and I'd just binge all night long because I was so starving. And eventually something clicked in, is like, well, this is not working. Like, this is not good. And at some point I just gave up. I think I was about 18 or 19. I said, well, I'm just going to have to accept that I'm fat, and that's it. And there was some relief in that, but I still didn't give up, right? So then you do the diet. And for anybody that's lost weight or understands the mindset of a person, dieters and people who want to lose weight swing between extremes. So we go between, like, I'm doing perfect and I'm not eating anything, to, oh my God, I slipped up. Well, I might as well keep going. And then it turns into a binge. And that's why so many people, they lose the weight, then they go off the diet, and then they gain it all back, because they literally are black or white. So they're either failing or they're succeeding. So I did that for, too many years to mention. And it wasn't until my 30s when I took all this training in NLP and hypnosis that I finally started to understand that model doesn't work. We have to inspire people, especially if you want sustainable weight loss. We have to inspire people to not go on a diet. There can be no diet. It's just eating healthy, making healthier choices. I call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you are eating healthy, and 20% of the time you do not deprive yourself. So right. When it finally clicked in, is as a generalist in hypnosis, people would come into my office and I'd always give a consultation, and they'd be sitting on my consultation couch and they'd repeat the same story. Now, for most of them, they'd say, I'm pretty good during the day. Or some of them was like, my little sweet treat in the afternoon. But I come home and then I eat all night long. And I would ask them, because I was so curious, Lori, I would say, okay, so what do you think's behind that? Like, what's causing you to just sit down and eat all night long? And they'd say, well, what do you mean? I'd say, well, are you feeling something? Are you thinking something? Well, I don't know, I just do it, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember from being in that situation myself, while I was doing it, I was not even enjoying it, right? So So you're not even enjoying it, and then you're left with this tremendous guilt afterwards. Like, it's just a horrible, horrible mindset to be stuck in. So I said to myself, wow, I have to change things in weight loss. I really have to begin to specialize in it and work with people, because I know the crazy making thoughts, and I know the mindset that they get stuck in. So believe it or not, weight loss is not as easy as something you would think to work with, like smoking or any kinds of addiction. It is an addiction, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's an addiction that is in our psyche in so many levels, and it's something that we still have to do at least three times a day, which is eat. So whereas smoking is like, we can get rid of that in one session, it's because it's either on or off. You're either smoking or you're not. Food is not something we still have to eat 3 times a day, and it's with us wherever we go. Like, every block there's a variety store that offers, junky foods, or there's a McDonald's, or there's a bakery or a cafe. We're surrounded by it. So really, I mean, it's something that I learned over time, and also through speaking to a lot of hypnotists. It's not such a quick fix.
I agree.
We usually need to work on many different levels with weight loss, right?
Right.
So.
Absolutely. So you had mentioned that you do feel like there's an addictive property that you address when you're working with your clients. Do you want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah.
Or would you like to talk about your post-conference talk?
Well, I'll talk about that in a second, but let me talk first about the addictive property, because according to the DSM, which is the manual that describes what addictions are, is although they haven't formally said food is an addiction, there is something about being, it's not a food addict, I forget how to describe it, but an overeater or something like that. So they have acknowledged it to a certain degree, but basically everything that happens with people that consume heroin or cocaine, we get the same effects when we look at brain scans with people who are eating, and I'm going to say not just food, right? Not just food.
Right.
High carbohydrate, sugary, refined foods will go straight to the pleasure centers of the brain, called the nucleus accumbens, just like cocaine or heroin. So we can be addicted to food. So let me circle back around to what I first started out. So I would ask my clients, I would say, what is it that's driving that? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? They had no idea. And of course, hypnosis is very useful for regressing someone to find out, exactly what's going on in their mind at that moment. So I would usually have them go back to, just before they started on their binge, and I'd say, okay, what's going on? And usually it was some need that they were trying to get met for themselves, that they had just learned to pacify themselves with food. So it could be overwhelmed from the day. It could be a need to do something just for themselves. Like, I'm just going to do this for me. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to eat. I'm going to enjoy this. There was always many reasons why they had it, but basically they were trying to get some need met for themselves, like peace of mind or relaxation, or shutting their brains down so they stopped thinking about work, or the people who beat themselves up. It's just like, just let me have this pleasure for the moment, and then, because it is pleasurable while we're eating, it's the guilt and all that kicks in afterwards. But of course our brain has created this habit, and our brain only knows one way to get this need met for ourselves, and that is through drugging ourselves with foods. Because, like, again, what I said is the highly refined sugary carbohydrates do go to the pleasure centers of the brain, like cocaine or heroin. So no question, they drug us. So
right.
So when you regress them and you find out that's what you're going to learn, is they're trying to get some need met, and it doesn't happen as fast as cocaine or heroin, which is instant, but it does happen over 20-30 minutes, that people will be just like that, like, okay, it's done. Like, I can just enjoy this, like, pleasant feeling I'm experiencing.
Right.
So we could consider it quite an addiction. And again, the brain has set up this and it runs on automatic, because it's a habit that has been created in our brain, that our brain only knows one way to get us relief, or it's only learned one way. So unraveling that whole thing, I mean, we have to deal with weight loss on so many different levels. We have to deal with it on the emotional eating level. We have to deal with it in our environment, keeping our environment conducive to us maintaining a healthy lifestyle. We have to create motivation, because most people are like used to the diet model, which doesn't work. So we have to get them motivated towards their goal. Okay, what's this going to bring me? And why is it important at my deepest core level, according to my values? Well, you know what? A lot of people will say, I don't want my kids to end up like me with this struggle and this conflict with food. I want to set a good example for them. And when I say motivate them, they have to be motivated at that deeper level that's in alignment with their deepest values. Because when you know your why, you're motivated. So again, it's our job as hypnotists to like drill it down, and make sure they're motivated. And of course the other stuff we work with, which is motivation for exercise. But the one thing, Lori, that because I used you as my demonstration model, you were one of them in my workshop last year. The thing that helped really knock it out of the park was just like collapsing the craving in the brain.
Yes.
With aversion, with an unpleasant feeling. Right?
Yes.
So maybe I'll attach that clip to this interview afterwards, where we show how you've never like wanted Dunkin' Donuts ever since, have you?
No, that was a powerful exercise, and I use that with my own clients and have amazing results nearly every single time. I would say 90% of people, it's effective, and it just immediately works.
Well, you were sharing with me when we spoke after the seminar about the guy with the pop or the soda addiction.
Yes.
It was like, how many sodas was he drinking a day?
He would drink tall boy sodas, Cokes, from the time he woke up in the morning till he went to bed at night. And I did the exact exercise that you walked me through with him. Took about, maybe 2 minutes max. Yeah. And at the end, he had to sit down and put his head down because he was sick to his stomach thinking about soda, and he hasn't been able to touch it since.
Yeah, and we don't always go to that extent. Well, I should say we. They don't always go to that extent where they just become nauseous at the feeling of eating the food. And these, I call them weight loss hacks. I'm going to be teaching a lot of them in this year's post-conference 2-day seminar. But they literally take, some of them are 2 minutes. And people are left, if not nauseous at the thought of the food, just completely indifferent. Like, let's say shrimp, I don't like it. I would never buy it if I'm starving, because it's my father's favorite and he always cooks it. If I'm starving, I could eat it. Don't really enjoy it, but if it's the only food that's on the table. So that's how people become to their addiction, or their former addictions, or the sweets. It's like they're indifferent. It's like, I could take it or I could not take it. I just really am completely indifferent to it. I don't care for it anymore.
Yes.
So that's the one thing that I found like really knocked it out of the park for weight loss, is you really, really need to like just create a very unpleasant sensation that goes along with that thing that they crave. So it's like, again, we're collapsing it in the brain. We're taking the craving and attaching it to a feeling that is unpleasant, and we just bam, and just like they collide in the middle, and it's just like, nope, just don't want it. Yeah. So it's that really helped knock it out of the ballpark for me in terms
of. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I took your 1-day post-conference last year, and I got so much out of it. It was incredibly valuable. And this year you're doing a 2-day, right?
Well, I'm doing a 2-day, and I specifically asked Richard, thank you, Richard, for a 2-day, because I felt like I just like overwhelmed you all because I gave you so much information. And I like everybody to do their own personal work too, and it doesn't even have to be with food. Maybe you have some other kind of addiction that you want to work with, but it's the same process for motivation. It's the same process for aversion. It's the same process for anyway, I have up to 10 different levels is what we're going to be working with, but this time I wanted to be a little bit more relaxed, because I took one look at you all at the end, and I thought, oh God, what have I done? I think I just fried their brains.
It was awesome though, because I think we were all processing for days, and when I went out and started using those tools, it was amazing.
Oh, you were amazing.
And what you said about doing self-work in the class, I remember that, and you helped one man with his smoking addiction, and it was just an incredibly valuable class. So I personally highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Now, you had mentioned that. Can you tell me the title of your class again this year?
It's called Changing the Brain with NLP and hypnosis for weight loss and food addiction. And I do because I'm like a little bit nerdy that way. I like to go into the science because I always got to know the why behind everything. So I'm going to be explaining some of the neuroscience behind addictions, how we form habits, and then of course how we walk somebody through getting rid of all that. So it's going to be tremendously heavy on both information but practical. We have to do the practical things with one another, not just for ourselves, but also so that we get the experience of what it's going to be like working with a client. Because as you know, Lori, no two clients are alike.
Absolutely.
The way one responds to one protocol that we may use, may be completely different. So it's good to have the experience in class and then ask the questions afterwards. So, I can explain, don't worry, it's okay. You did a good job. It's just that this person responded this way or that way. And because we're all our own unique little snowflakes, aren't we?
Yes. And you even at last year's conference talked a little bit about the booking process, the intake process.
Right.
Talked a little bit about the business model. So you delivered way above and beyond what I was expecting.
Well, the important thing is that in order to have success, you have to get your clients committed. So I walk you through how to set up a package with that because, we have I call them the tire kickers that come in like, well, let me try one session and see what happens. Really? You've had this like overeating habit for 20 years of your life. You think it's all going to be cured in one session. So you really gotta, I do a minimum of 3 at full price, and then I offer a package which is an incentive of either 7 or 12 sessions. And honestly, with weight loss, with anybody, they need at least 10. They've been struggling for 20 years. Those habits are really ingrained, and there's so many different levels we have to work with. I walk you through, how to put together a package and sell them a package, because if you want to be successful, the very minimum they have to have is 3, and then by then, they're convinced that they're changing. So you can roll that into a package of 7 or 12 after that. But it is important as a hypnotist that we want to ensure that our clients are successful and committed. They're not just tire kickers that float from one thing to the other, thinking that there's some magic bullet. But there isn't. Not in something like weight loss. Weight loss it's complicated. Food means so much to everybody on so many different levels. For some people, the first thing that happens when you fall down and you scrape your knee is, what does your mom give you to feel good? Here's a cookie, stop crying. So when the little kid goes off to college, 18 years old, I miss my mommy. Well, maybe I'll just eat a bag of cookies. Oh, that's that connection I had with mom, So it's ingrained in us on so many levels. And it's not on or off like smoking. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I don't want to go on because I know people can sign up for the course, but
it is amazing. In addition to what you've shared with us so far with the collapsing and that sort of thing, are there any tools or mindsets or tricks that you found especially effective in helping people with weight loss?
Definitely dealing with emotional eating. Most people are eating, I would say 95% are eating emotionally. It's to get that feeling, to get some kind of need met for themselves, So we've definitely got to address the emotional eating and give them new and healthy behaviors in lieu of that. And that's pretty much it for now.
Awesome. Okay, well, it was so good meeting with you today, Didi. I'm really looking forward to your class, and thank you for meeting with me today.
Me too, and we'll see you at Hypnothoughts.
Sounds good.